Hello, welcome back to Auto Pop Culture. Today we're going over the second album by Porter Robinson called Nurture. So this has been a long time since we had an album from him. The last one that came out, the very first album was Worlds, and it came out in 2014. And since then, it's been pretty silent with the whole stage of where he's going with the next album or not. And so going into this, finally kind of seeing that he finally released something, I, as a pseudo fan, I've never really dived deep into him where I'm a huge fan, but I am a fan of him, just not as strong, deep one. So when saw that he has a second one, and then learning about why this second album came a little longer than expected, it makes so much more sense, and I'm glad that I got a little more piece of his personal life to kind of get to know him in that direction. And this, if you don't know who he is a North Carolina-based DJ and producer and slash singer, and one of those things that he loves to do is kind of up his vocals to where it almost sounds like a complete different, it kind of sounds like a kid sometimes, but in the best way, because you can tell it's being pitched up compared to he just likes having, he's have a couple of kids inside the studio that he just likes to feature on his album for some reason, but it's not like that. So let's get into the background with all of this. So apparently what happened between Worlds and now, he had a huge creative block. It just where he couldn't find things that could make sense, that things made sense, that felt good, that something he could make, that the whatever music that he was making was sound great to him to where he wants to release it. And at the same time, I'm sure he got a lot of fans and people were just like, release something, release something, release something. And he's like, I don't even know do you know where I'm supposed to start with this whole idea of releasing stuff, where I really feel like the world love Worlds. And that made a huge splash, especially for a debut. So it's just, I can definitely get when he's talking about after that huge exposure, I thought it was going to be a nice little gradual climb, but it went from I'm starting to album. I'm up on the top with the mainstream people already. And I think that took a lot of toll on his self-doubt or his self-esteem and how he actually felt about what he expected was a gradual climb, but now he's up there, and so he was scared that he couldn't compete with the instant rise of a mainstream of a first album and how to outdo himself pretty much. And I feel like in this album, I listened to Worlds and I do like Worlds. I think this album is a little better. I think it's better because I feel like I think the reason I like it because it has more personal feeling to it for some reason. I just feel like the fact that he had that writer's block, or just makes it sound, just I think kind of helped him in the end, because I felt like I got more of him and who he was and his life and how he's feeling. I think that's so nice to I've kind of favor more those type of albums over kind of just commercial, just trying to make it through, trying to give you all the bops kind of thing. I do love a good song. I do love great hits, but I definitely, if you can mix those two, then you're completely golden in my world. But if you don't have those two mixed, if one, you have to go with one or the other, I definitely want to see what's going on in your life compared to what's the next major hit you're going to make that doesn't have anything to do with anything. So let me go over some of the songs I really liked. Starting off, I will say there's a handful of instrumentals, and I do know his kind of style, and I do know that he does not care how long this song goes. It's all about the atmosphere, not the how long the song is supposed to be. So you'll have wind tempos that goes on for 6 minutes and 4 seconds, and the lyrics don't come in until 4 minutes and 25 seconds. And so you're like, okay, this is really going on for a while. But if I was in a different direction where I wasn't listening to it for reviewing it, and I was just listening to it just for the atmosphere itself, I think that 6 minutes really would have felt really nice. But anyway, back to the songs I really like. So, Look at the Sky is a really beautiful song. Pretty much talks about the idea of a brighter outlook of how he feels about the future and kind of appreciating the smaller things, and due to the fact that he had this writer's block, a creative block, after Worlds, he tweeted this thing in the midst of it saying, I can make something good. And it was what it seems like it was more of a talk to himself, saying that he does have the power to make it. He can make possibility. He can make it. He can make a good music. He can keep on going. He can not up. He can add something else to his. Well, let me back up. I think it's more like I can continue going at this. This is what I want. This is what I want to do. Music is what I want to do, and I can do something. I can make good music. And I think that after such a huge, like, as I said, such a huge success with Worlds, topping himself was a very pressure, like, put a lot of pressure on him, I'm sure. And to the point where he says, "Is it fate? Is it fate? If it's not easy, it must not be." So I think the idea that what he sees is that he's not he's thinking that since he made Worlds and it came out so perfectly, he thought that it should be easy to make a second album. But he's finding difficulty in that direction. He's like, it's not snapping as easy as the first one did, and now he's wondering if this is even meant to be. And that's pretty much the whole theme of this album. One thing he says is that shouldn't it come naturally, and everyone knows you're losing your gift, and it's plain to see. Pretty much things that he has in his mind that he thinks everybody else has just gave up on him because he doesn't believe in himself in that direction. Get Your Wish is pretty much talking about a reason to keep going forward. And I think in this album, or in this song, it's pretty much talking about the idea of him continuing that feeling. So one of the things he says, one day you choke, your urges overflow, and obsession was your weighs down on you, weighs you down, but don't you waste suffering your. Let me back up. Let me say this one more time. Okay, one day you choke, your urges overflow, and obsession wears you down, but don't waste the suffering you faced. It will serve you in due time. Pretty much saying like all this stuff that you went through will be worth it in the end, because all of that combines to making what you pretty much in his instant will make you make music again that you feel satisfied with. And all of this suffering and all these kind of pushing yourself will be worth it. And then you will, as he says, float to the surface quicker than you sink. Going to the next song, another song that I really like was Musician, which kind of falls into more of that. Talks about more of his like inner struggles about finding his space after releasing Worlds. One thing I definitely, and wondering if this path is the right path for him to do, is to continue doing music. And I love the whole back and forth it tells you. Is just like, he talks about how there's a calling. I feel this is a calling for me to do this. I can feel like I really want to do this. But then there's an opposite there's an opposite doubt that he has. And he also points out there's people that also talk to him that doubt him even more by saying, isn't it time you get a real job? Or is it time you start growing up and stop tinkering with this music shit? Because everybody doesn't really take music and musicians seriously. I feel like it's one of those things, just like it is a career, it is something. And I think that also has to do with like society. I think that we don't really, because if you do make it big, you get a shit ton of money. But if you are just if you're just going along your way, you don't make any money. And I feel like that's kind of sucks. I think we definitely need to kind of lean into the direction of, this is a complete loose idea, but like, more, you know how like in Amsterdam they have like the red light district, and you have to, if you're going to be a sex worker, you have to get registered, you have to do all these things, you get paid for it, and all this kind of things like that. And I feel like you have a little more security, and I think that musicians deserve that kind of security. Another song I love was Mirror, which is one of those singles that I already heard before, and I really, really love it. I think it pretty much talks about pushing back self doubt, um, as, but once again, there's a duality to it where Porter is talking about his disappointment in himself and he's criticizing himself, and there's a second narrative that goes through that comes behind him and pretty much has hope and encouragement, but pretty much saying that these doubts that you have is just working, it's just you and your mind fighting each other. It has nothing to do with anybody else. And to the point, sometimes it doesn't. And I think that one thing he says, and though they sound like other one another, you've only said it to yourself. Pretty much saying that these thoughts that you think that you're not good enough, or thoughts that you think that you're not, that you'll fall and you'll fail and everything, and everybody's gonna laugh at you and everybody's gonna like give you shit for it, is not entirely true, because you're the only one that's feeling that way, because they have yet to see your shit. They have yet to see anything that you've done, so how would they even know how you're gonna feel until it actually happens? But that's something that's still, until then, it's all in your head. That's all what you are telling you. No one has said that to you, or most likely knows that has said that to you, but that's the whole thing about your worst enemy is pretty much you, as Lady Gaga would say in 911. Going into another song I really like is Something Comforting. This one pretty much talks about the idea of just having, I don't want to say like having validation, but it feels like he just wants somebody to make him feel better about his situation, because apparently what goes on is the lyrics would say, because getting makes you want more and hoping makes you hurt more. There must be something wrong with me. Somebody please tell me something comforting. And pretty much in his direction, it's just like he's just working around the direction of trying to be satisfied with himself, trying to be okay with being okay, with just, and I feel like I think he might have some type of perfectionist type of thing going on, because he's pushing himself to like, oh, I want more now. What's wrong with me? And it's like, you're being a little bit hard on yourself, because that just sounds like you're just so worked up and being a perfectionist. One thing he says is, if I send this void away, have I lost a part of me? Pretty much saying that as much as he feels these back and forth conflicting feelings, I feel like he also is just like, I also don't really know if I let all of this go, just like, fuck it, maybe this isn't for me, will that be enough? Like, would I really be just ripping a part of me? Because that's what he feels like. And it shows you that he feels like music and making music and being part of that industry is part of him, that he was born to do this kind of thing. Going into the very last song, which I really like, is Trying to Feel Alive. It's a great ending to this whole conflicting feelings about whether he should continue doing music, or whether he's enough and self-worth inside the being a musician. And what he says in this one is really, really beautiful, because it feels like he kind of comes to terms with himself. And it says, maybe it's a gift that I couldn't recognize. Maybe I don't really need to feel satisfied. Maybe it's a gift that I spend all this time trying to feel alive. So that kind of feel alive kind of back and forth itself, because at first he's trying to feel alive, and then he understands what that means. And I think that he also applies it to other people by saying, and then somebody somewhere finds the warmth of summer in the songs you write. Pretty much saying, even if you don't do it for you, do it for the person that always wanted to feel this way, that didn't know that this is an emotion that they felt before, kind of thing. So if they also are going through this way where it's just like, is it worth it to even do this? Is it worth it to even be a musician? Maybe they'll look at your album and be like, that's inspiration I needed, or the motivation I needed to hear. And I think that it's completely true. This whole album, if I was a musician, it would definitely help me. A couple shout outs to Blossom. I really love Blossom. I think it was really cute. It's so vulnerable and so loving. And it's pretty much about his girlfriend, Rika. It pretty much means pear blossom in Japanese. And he just couldn't completely professes says his love to her in so many ways, in so many vulnerable ways too, to the point where he's like, I'm sorry for crying. It's just that I love you, and one day can't be for can't be far enough. Pretty much knowing that there's a time where it might end, we might die, we might do this kind of thing, but I don't want to be able to know you just once. I want to be able to know you multiple times, over and over again, kind of thing. This album was very, very nicely done. I give this a 8 out of 10 because I do want to point out some of the songs, the instrumentals, and some of the kind of the space between getting to that space of the lyrics of what this song is about did take a bit long in some songs, but I feel like, once again, if I only because I'm like face to face with it, but if I wasn't face to face and looking at it and like writing down as I'm trying to keep up with everything, and I was just kind of listening to it for the more atmosphere direction, which I pretty much did in a way, I think that would even boost it up further, but I think that for now, this is what my stance is. Leave a comment below to me what you thought. If you like the if you like the video, hit the like button and subscribe button and notification button so you get more of my videos. But if you also like the album, let me know. And if you didn't like the album, let me know, and let me know why too. Everybody's entitled to their opinions. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all next video.